Picture this, honey. A 72-year-old woman kneeling in a cold church, hands trembling as she touches her daughter's tear-stained face. "I sold our land so you could have your wedding," she whispers. 15 years I've carried this secret." The daughter's eyes go wide with shock. "Mama, what have I done?" But was this confession too little? Too late? In the next hour and a half, you're going to discover how a mother's silent sacrifices nearly destroyed the very family she was trying to save, and whether love can truly conquer 15 years of bitter resentment. This story will change how you see every no your parents ever gave you. Now listen here, honey, because what I'm about to tell you is going to break your heart clean in two. Picture this. A cold November night, rain coming down like tears from heaven itself, and there stands Susan at her front door, hand gripping that doorknob so tight her knuckles turned white as bone. "Get out!" she screams, her voice cutting through that storm like a knife through butter. "You never helped me with nothing. Everything I got, I earned my own self." And there, standing in that freezing rain, is Margaret, 72 years old, clutching a worn cloth bag that's seen better days. Lord have mercy. That woman's eyes were searching her daughter's face for some sign of the little girl who used to run to her arms, but all she found was ice-cold hatred staring back at her. The door slams shut. Bang! Echoing through that empty house like a gunshot. The camera just sits there on Margaret's face, and y'all, that's when you see it. One single tear, different from all that rain, slides down her weathered cheek. That old woman stands there in the storm, soaked to the bone, holding nothing but memories and heartbreak. The wind's howling, the rain's beating down, but nothing, and I mean nothing, hurts worse than hearing your own flesh and blood tell you to disappear forever. What in heaven's name could make a daughter turn so cruel? What kind of pain runs deeper than a mother's love? You just wait and see, sugar. This story's just getting started, and the truth? Well, the truth's gonna shock you to your core. Now, y'all, to understand why Susan's heart turned cold as winter stone, we gotta go back. Way back to when she was just 17, standing at her high school dance, watching all her friends twirl around in their brand new dresses like they were floating on air. There's little Susan, wearing that same blue dress, patched up and faded from 3 years of wear. Her eyes lit up watching those girls spin and laugh, dreaming of what it'd feel like to have something pretty and new. That's when Margaret leans over and whispers real quiet like, "That kind of thing just ain't for us, sweetheart." Lord have mercy. You could see that girl's heart just crumble right there. Then comes the day Susan finds that poster downtown. Technical training course that could change her whole life. Her heart's beating fast, thinking maybe, just maybe, this could be her ticket out. But when she shows Margaret, her mama just shakes her head tired-like and says, "Forget it, honey. We can't afford such foolishness." Year after year, it's the same story. Dreams getting crushed like flowers under heavy boots. Susan's voice echoes through these memories. "She never believed in me, never wanted me to have more than what she had. I swore I'd make something of myself, not because of her help, but despite her holding me back." But sugar, was Susan seeing the whole picture, or just the part that hurt the most? Stay with me now, because this story's about to turn everything upside down. Before we continue this emotional story, put in the comments below which city you're watching from. It'll be a pleasure to give your comment a little heart. Now, let's continue this exciting story. Now, y'all, to understand why Susan's heart turned cold as winter stone, we gotta go back. Way back to when she was just 17, standing at her high school dance, watching all her friends twirl around in their brand new dresses like they were floating on air. There's little Susan wearing that same blue dress, patched up and faded from 3 years of wear. Her eyes lit up watching those girls spin and laugh, dreaming of what it'd feel like to have something pretty and new. That's when Margaret leans over and whispers real quiet like, "That kind of thing just ain't for us, sweetheart." Lord have mercy. You could see that girl's heart just crumble right there. Then comes the day Susan finds that poster downtown, technical training course that could change her whole life. Her heart's beating fast, thinking maybe, just maybe, this could be her ticket out. But when she shows Margaret, her mama just shakes her head tired-like and says, "Forget it, honey. We can't afford such foolishness." Year after year, it's the same story. Dreams getting crushed like flowers under heavy boots. College applications that never got sent because we ain't college people. Job opportunities in the city that Margaret called too risky for a girl like you. Susan's voice echoes through these memories. "She never believed in me, never wanted me to have more than what she had. Every time I tried to fly, she clipped my wings. I swore I'd make something of myself, not because of her help, but despite her holding me back." By the time Susan turned 22 and met David, that resentment had grown thick as kudzu vines, choking out any tender feelings she might have had left for her mama. But Sugar, was Susan seeing the whole picture, or just the part that hurt the most? 'Cause sometimes love wears the mask of disappointment, and sacrifice looks an awful lot like selfishness from the outside. Now y'all, David's holding that notebook like it's burning his hands, but there's one page that stops him cold. It's marked with a date from 15 years back, right around the time Susan got married. The writing's different here, more careful, like Margaret was trying real hard to get the words just right. Sold the land today, got enough for Susan's wedding and her move to the city. She don't need to know. Lord have mercy, that hit David like a freight train. See, Susan's daddy had passed when she was just 22, leaving behind a little piece of land. Wasn't much, but it was all they had. Margaret told Susan it got taken for back taxes, that there wasn't nothing she could do about it. But that wasn't the truth, honey. Not even close. What really happened was this. Old Mr. Henderson next door came sniffing around like a vulture, offering Margaret a loan she couldn't refuse. Used that land as collateral, knowing good and well she'd never be able to pay it back. Margaret knew it too, but Susan was planning her wedding, dreaming of a life in the city with David. So Margaret signed those papers with tears streaming down her face, gave up the only security she had left in this world so her baby girl could have her fairy tale wedding and start fresh somewhere new. Susan never knew her mama sacrificed the family land to give her that new beginning. Margaret let her daughter believe she was just too weak, too helpless to save what mattered most. Why would a mother choose to look like a failure instead of revealing the truth? What kind of love does that, Sugar? The kind that breaks your heart wide open. Now, honey, David's heart is heavy as a stone as he drives to work that morning, that notebook burning a hole in his jacket pocket. He can't shake what he read, can't stop thinking about poor Margaret wandering the streets in that storm while Susan sleeps warm and dry. But the good Lord works in mysterious ways, Sugar, and sometimes the truth finds you when you least expect it. David's got a delivery to make way across town. Old Mrs. Peterson ordered some factory parts. When he pulls up to her house, she's standing on the porch like she's been waiting for him. "You're Susan's husband, ain't you?" she says, squinting at him through her thick glasses. "I heard about what happened last night. Terrible shame, just terrible." David's stomach drops. News travels fast in small towns, and he realizes the whole neighborhood probably heard Susan screaming at her mama. "Mrs. Peterson," he starts, but the old woman holds up her hand. "That poor Margaret," she shakes her head, tears forming in her cloudy eyes. 15 years ago, she came to me crying her heart out. Had to sell her family's land to that vulture Henderson so Susan could have her dream wedding. Broke that woman's spirit, but she said, 'My baby deserves better than what I had.'" The words hit David like lightning from a clear blue sky. Mrs. Peterson keeps talking, but he can barely hear her over the roaring in his ears. Never told Susan the truth neither. Said it was better her daughter think she was weak than know she'd given up everything for love. David drives home in a daze, realizing he's holding the key to a 15-year-old secret that could either heal his family or destroy it completely. What's a man supposed to do with truth that heavy? Now, Sugar, when David walks through that front door, his heart's beating like a drum in his chest. Susan's in the kitchen making coffee, humming like nothing in the world is wrong. But David's got 15 years of lies weighing him down, and he can't carry them another minute. "Susan, honey," he says, setting Margaret's notebook down on the kitchen table real gentle-like. "We need to talk." Susan glances at that beat-up little book, and her face goes hard as stone. "Where'd you get that? You've been going through my mama's things." "She dropped it last night," David says, his voice trembling. "Susan, do you know what's in here?" "I don't care what's in there," Susan snaps. But David can see something flickering behind her eyes. Maybe fear, maybe doubt. He opens to that page about the land, points to Margaret's careful handwriting. "Your mama sold the family land to pay for our wedding. She let you believe it got taken for taxes, but she gave it up so you could have your dreams." Susan stares at those words like they're written in a foreign language. That's not true, she told me." "She lied to protect you," David says, soft as a whisper. "Mrs. Peterson told me everything today. Your mama's been carrying this secret for 15 years, letting you think she was weak when really she was the strongest woman I ever heard of." Susan's hands start shaking. She grabs that notebook and throws it across the room, pages scattering like wounded birds. "No, if that was true, she would have told me. You're just trying to make me feel guilty." But David can see the cracks forming in her armor, see the doubt creeping in like water through a broken dam. The truth's got a way of finding the light, honey. Question is, will Susan let it heal her, or will it destroy everything she thought she knew about herself? Now, honey, after Susan threw that notebook and scattered those pages like autumn leaves, something broke inside her. Not her anger, no ma'am, that was still burning hot as a coal stove, but something deeper, cracked, like ice on a pond when spring starts coming. That night, Susan couldn't sleep worth a lick. Every time she closed her eyes, she heard her mama's voice saying, "That kind of thing ain't for us, sweetheart." But now those words sounded different, not like giving up, but like giving everything. David pretended to sleep, but he could feel his wife tossing and turning like she was wrestling with demons. Around 3 in the morning, Susan got up and started pacing the floor, wearing a path in that old carpet. What if he's right? She whispered to herself, thinking David couldn't hear. What if Mama really did? But no, she couldn't finish that thought, couldn't let it take root. Come sunrise, something wild took hold of Susan. She grabbed her keys and started driving. No plan, no destination, just driving like the devil himself was chasing her. First stop was the old folks' home on Maple Street. Maybe Margaret went there. "No, ma'am," the nurse said kindly. "Ain't seen hide nor hair of any Margaret." Next was the church shelter downtown. Same story. Then the bus station, the hospital, every place a lost old woman might end up. With each no and each empty stare, Susan's heart got heavier. By evening, she was sitting in her car outside the last shelter in town, crying for the first time since she was a little girl. Not pretty tears, neither. Ugly, raw sobs that came from somewhere deep in her chest. She wasn't just looking for her mama anymore. Sugar. She was looking for herself, for the daughter she used to be before pride built walls around her heart. Time was running out, and Margaret was somewhere out there in the cold, alone. Would Susan find her before it was too late? Now, Sugar. After 2 days of searching every corner of that town, Susan was about ready to give up hope. Her eyes were red as cherries from crying, her voice hoarse from asking the same question over and over. "Have you seen my mama?" But the good Lord works in mysterious ways, honey. On that third morning, something told Susan to check the little white church on Elm Street, the same church where Margaret used to take her as a little girl for Sunday service. Susan pushes open those heavy wooden doors, and there, Lord have mercy, there in the third pew from the front sits Margaret. Her grey hair's all matted, her clothes wrinkled from sleeping rough, but she's got her hands folded in prayer like she's been waiting for this moment her whole life. Susan's knees just give out right there in the aisle. She falls down hard, all that pride and anger crumbling like a house of cards in a windstorm. "Mama," she whispers, the word coming out broken and raw. Margaret opens her eyes slow-like, and when she sees her daughter kneeling there, tears streaming down her face, something beautiful happens. No harsh words, no "I told you so." Just this quiet acceptance that only a mother's heart can hold. Margaret reaches out with those work-worn hands and touches Susan's head, gentle as morning dew. That simple touch says more than 1,000 apologies, more than all the explanations in the world. "I'm sorry, Mama," Susan sobs. "I'm so sorry for everything." Margaret just keeps stroking her daughter's hair, humming that old hymn she used to sing when Susan was scared of thunderstorms. In that moment, all those years of hurt start melting away like snow in springtime. But honey, finding each other was just the beginning. Now comes the hard part, learning how to love again after so much pain, rebuilding what pride and misunderstanding tore apart. Can a mother and daughter find their way back to each other after 15 years of silence and sacrifice? Now Sugar finding each other in that little church was just the first step on a long road home. See, forgiveness might happen in a moment, but healing, real healing, that takes time, patience, and a whole lot of grace. Susan brought Margaret home that very day, but Lord have mercy, it was awkward as 2 cats in a bathtub. 15 years of hurt don't just disappear with a hug and some tears. Margaret sat in the guest room like she was afraid to touch anything, and Susan kept hovering around like she didn't know how to be a daughter anymore. David watched it all unfold, bless his heart, trying to make conversation while these 2 women danced around each other like they were walking on broken glass. First dinner together was quieter than a funeral parlor, but slowly, honey, oh so slowly, little moments started breaking through. Susan noticed Margaret's hands shaking when she tried to pour her coffee, so she started doing it for her. Margaret saw Susan struggling with a recipe and quietly wrote down the measurements she'd forgotten. Then came the day Susan found Margaret looking at those old photo albums, tears streaming down her cheeks as she touched pictures of Susan as a little girl. "I kept every school picture," Margaret whispered. Even when I didn't have money for groceries, I kept them. That's when Susan truly understood the depth of her mama's love. All those years, Margaret had been holding on to memories, while Susan was building walls. "Mama," Susan said, sitting down beside her, "tell me about the land. Tell me about everything I didn't know." And for the first time in 15 years, Margaret started talking, really talking, about the sacrifices, the loneliness, the nights she cried herself to sleep, wondering if she'd done right by her daughter. But healing ain't a straight line, sugar. There were setbacks, arguments, moments when old hurts bubbled up like poison. The question was, would love be strong enough to overcome all those years of silence? Now, honey, here we are 6 months later, and let me paint you a picture that'll warm your heart right down to your toes. Susan's moved her little family to a modest house on the outskirts of town. Nothing fancy, mind you, but it's got a front porch and a yard big enough for dreams. Margaret's sitting in her rocking chair, wearing the soft blue sweater Susan bought her for her 73rd birthday. Her hands ain't shaking so much anymore, not since she's been taking her heart medicine regular and eating 3 good meals a day. Susan's planted flowers everywhere, roses, daisies, sunflowers tall as David's shoulders. "Read me that part again, sweetheart," Margaret says, closing her eyes as Susan reads from that old book of poems they found at the church rummage sale. The evening breeze carries the scent of honeysuckle across the yard, and you can almost feel the peace settling over that little house like a warm blanket. The land Margaret sacrificed all those years ago? Well, that's gone forever, sugar. But what they've built here is something money can't buy, a home founded on truth, forgiveness, and love that's been tested by fire. David watches from the kitchen window as he fixes dinner, smiling at the sight of his wife and mother-in-law sharing stories and gentle laughter. Sometimes, the greatest victories ain't about getting back what you lost. They're about discovering what you never knew you had. The good Lord teaches us through Margaret and Susan's story that the greatest inheritance ain't written in no legal papers or bank accounts. It's written in the heart, in the quiet sacrifices made in darkness, in the strength to forgive when forgiveness seems impossible, and in love that refuses to die even when buried under years of hurt. Y'all, true wealth ain't measured in dollars and cents. It's found in the healing power of a mother's touch and a daughter's repentant heart. This powerful story of Margaret and Susan reminds us that the deepest wounds often come from the people we love most, and that healing is always possible when we choose to see beyond our own pain. Are there sacrifices in your life that went unnoticed or unappreciated? What walls of pride or resentment might be keeping you from deeper relationships with those who love you? When was the last time you truly listened to someone's heart instead of just their words? Sometimes the people we think have failed us are actually the ones who've given us everything. Margaret's silent sacrifices teach us that love doesn't always look like what we expect. Sometimes it looks like saying no so your child can have yes in other ways. Don't let pride steal your chance at reconciliation. Life is too short, and hearts are too precious to waste on old hurts that can be healed with understanding and forgiveness. Subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell so you never miss these life-changing stories that remind us what truly matters. Click on the video appearing on your screen right now to continue watching more inspiring tales of love, sacrifice, and redemption that will touch your soul.